But sometimes the most powerful stuff, it's just a simple reminder. And I think one of the most powerful ones that I've gotten recently, which I love, is only doing the thing is doing the thing. There was some guy that wrote a huge, long tweet about it. I think maybe you've seen it, but where he said, reading about doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Talking to someone who's done the thing isn't doing the thing. Planning to do the thing isn't doing the thing. The only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing. And for me, I kind of had, sometimes I had like periods of time where I would step into this idea that everything that had something to do with my business was productivity. So whether I was reading about business, or I was DMing people about business, or I was at a business class, or whatever, as long as it had something to do with my business, I felt like, man, that was productive and that was good. Now we've kind of stripped like 90% of what I was doing away and said, you can do those things. Absolutely. Read books and go to classes and all these things. Just know that's not doing the thing. So when we say do the thing for maybe an hour and a half, then we take a break, then I do another work session where I'm doing the thing for 90 minutes, that's only this thing, right? Maybe that's reaching out to podcasters, or maybe it's writing my ebook, whatever. So that's one thing that's very powerful to me. It's just kind of removing everything that isn't doing the thing.
You are now listening to the Verified Phenoms podcast. In this show, we speak with individuals who have come from all walks of life and have overcome the mental limitations of imposter syndrome, perfectionism, and overthinking. Get your notebook ready and stay tuned to learn how you can win your mental battles and become a verified phenom as well. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Verified Phenoms. We're always in the season talking to real people that have real challenges, that have real success. Today we have with us Daniel Hauge, is an entrepreneur and best-selling author who's obsessed with personal development, high performance, and lifestyle design. His international bestseller, The Cure for Mediocrity, led him to his business Passion for Achievement, which has helped thousands of people across the world. His DWYP method framework, which consists of clarity work, mastering the science of habit building, leveraging momentum, utilizing high-performance tools, and so much more, continues to help people reach their goals to this day. Daniel, happy Saturday. How are you doing today?
Thank you, man. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me. I'm just super excited to make this happen. I think we're gonna have a great episode, and I'm super hyped up for this. So, yeah.
Same, likewise. It's been like a month or two, so it's been a little bit of anticipation, but I am super excited to get this episode rolling with you today. So as I was telling you prior, before we got up here, I do like to get started with some rapid fire questions. Just let me know the first thing that comes to your mind, and we're just going to go rolling from there. Sound good?
Love it.
All right, cool. If you had to choose a completely different career path, what would it be?
It would be something in finance or in investment banking, something like that.
What's one book that's had the largest impact on your life, and why?
Perhaps Awaken the Giant Within by Tony Robbins, because that was one of the first books I read, which kind of led on to everything else afterwards.
If you were an animal, which one would you be?
Oh, it would be so cheesy to say lion right now, but that's kind of the first thing that came to mind. I would love to be a lion, yeah.
All right. What is your favorite hobby?
Weightlifting or martial arts.
Okay. And if you could create any type of random technology right now, what would it be?
I think actually it would be some kind of technology where you would put a GPS in all of your favorite items, even your car keys and all these things, because sometimes I can't find my stuff and I'm like, man, there has to be a way for me to not have this problem. So I think it would be something like that. It would just be tiny GPSs in everything that's important to me.
I agree with you on that. You know how they had the the Apple AirTags? Those are just it's not enough. It's just I don't know. Personally, it's not enough. And they have I think it's like tile. But yeah, something like more microscopic that's not going to cost you $40 or $50 for each little device that you need. I completely agree with you on that
Hmm.
because I also am challenged with losing things and like where in the world did I put it. So I definitely agree with you on that. But so okay, so Tony Robbins, his book was one of the first ones that inspired you. What led you to actually just picking up the book?
Yeah. So a long story short, I was kind of off track in life. I in my teenage years, I was involved in some crimes, some drug abuse. I didn't really go to school or work a job or anything like that. So I was steadily going down the wrong path. And when I decided that that was not gonna give me a great long life, it was gonna, quite the contrary, end up very badly. I decided that I was gonna turn things around. And so what I did was I started uh, putting personal development books and courses and stuff like that on my Christmas wishing list and my birthday wishing list. And one of the first books I read was Awaken the Giant Within with Tony Robbins. And I just feel like the things he wrote in there were powerful, and I'm using some of those tools still to this day. But also, just that book was kind of what awakened me to the idea of personal growth and actually studying something that you can then implement and then see a tangible result in your life. That idea got opened up to me, and then I kind of built everything I've built on top of those ideas. So I think that's why it's so important to me, that book. But sometimes it's difficult for me to to answer the question, which one book, because often for me it's perhaps 5% of this book or 3% of this book and
Mm.
7% of this book that really truly made a difference. So yeah.
What other books made a difference in your journey so far? Then.
Well, I've read a lot, and just about everything I want to improve in my life, I'll read books on, whether that's weightlifting or nutrition or psychology or personal finance, or maybe it's kind of finances and business or everything. Dude, I just read because there is someone out there that spent maybe 40 years of his life just dedicating everything he had, all his time, his money, his energy,
Hmm.
into learning something, and then he wrote a book about it, and then you can read that in 6 hours. Right? It took him 40 years. So I just feel like books are the ultimate shortcuts to just about everything we want. So yeah, I read a lot of different books.
How often are you reading?
Oh, daily for sure.
Okay. How many books would you say you read a year?
I think maybe 50.
Nice, nice, nice.
But that's tricky. That's a tricky one because I read a lot of books multiple
Hmm.
times, right? So there's some books that I'll read,
Mm.
and then every 3 months I'll read it again, stuff like that. And so then does that count as an entire book or not? That's kind of that's tricky. But I like to read the same books over and over again. I think some people get caught up in only just acquiring as much unique information as possible instead of
Hmm.
sometimes maybe going back to something that they are still not implementing to its fullest potential.
I can definitely understand that there are some books that I like to read again. I probably don't read them like as frequently as like every 3 months, like you said. I probably may read them like a year or every other year, um, because when if we're talking about personal development books, some of the information in the book will not relate to where you currently are in life, so you can't truly connect and receive it. Let's just say today as you would 2 years from now. So I know sometimes like okay, like I remember when I was reading Grant Cardone's book on like selling or Tony Robbins' book on personal development. I remember reading this section of the book. However, I was not in the headspace and physical space to receive that and implement that information. But now I can. So let me go ahead and revisit that conversation and revisit those pages within the book,
Hmm.
that I'm able to like, okay, now I can actually execute on this and move forward. So I definitely understand that. I think that's truly valuable. I would even consider if you're reading the entire book again, why not add that, throw that on the list? Like I read another book. Like technically you're reading from beginning to end. So I can see that. I can see that for
Yeah.
sure. So question, Daniel, how we all always try to figure out like, this one person that we can look up to when we're looking to make a change in our life. You were saying that you were starting to go down a path that you didn't want to continue while you were in high school or your teenage years. How did you end up discovering Tony Robbins, and how did you know that person was an individual was somebody that you could follow down their path or listen to their words of advice?
Oh, that's a great question. I think this sounds very simple, and it was. I think I just started Googling like the most
Mm,
basic questions, like how do I become successful in life, or how do I grow as a
mm,
person, how do I, and then I think you probably get a bunch of like top 20 books list on this topic and top 20 authors on
yeah.
this, and then I think it was something along the lines of that, and then I would just really look into obviously who the person was, but also much about what the book was about and what kind of results the people who read the book had gotten, and then also a lot of it I would kind of vet myself. So I've bought a ton of books and trainings and courses. I've also been around the world to different conferences and seminars and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And not a lot of what I've learned, whether we're talking personal growth, but also in business and psychology and all these things, not everything is something that immediately translates or maybe ever translates to
Hmm.
a tangible result. So oftentimes, like I said before, maybe it's 5 pages of that book or it's 10 pages of that book, and then the results kind of spoke for themselves. So if I'm reading something
Hmm.
and it helps me, like if I'm reading something and it helps me lose 3 pounds, or I'm reading something and it increases my productivity by 15%, or if it works basically, then I kind of that's kind of maybe that's actually enough qualified for me. Like some people will ask, why are you qualified to do that? Why are you qualified to write that book? Why are you qualified to well
Hmm.
it's helping people with a tangible results, and they're actually seeing results. So I don't know, if I read something and it helps me, then I'm appreciative of the person that wrote it, right? So
I'm glad that you brought that up. Like, why are you qualified to write the book, all that type of stuff? Because one thing that I love to talk about on this show are imposter syndrome, like overthinking and
mhm.
perfectionism. What you just touched on was a version of imposter syndrome. Like, why are you
Yes.
qualified to write this book? And that's something that so many authors or aspiring authors go through when they're writing their first book. So I know when we were before we had started, you were saying that you wrote your international bestseller within a 6 month time span. As you were writing that book, was there anything like in the back of your head and you're like, you know what, maybe I shouldn't be the person that delivers this message?
Well, one thing I tried to do a lot when I was writing my book and my courses and my content, I still to an extent do that a lot today,
Hmm.
is I try to be a little bit more of a messenger. So many of the things that I put in my book, I didn't invent or create from thin air. I kind of just took maybe some Tony Robbins stuff, maybe some Grant Cardone, maybe all these people who are super successful, undeniably, right? And then I kind of took the way I explained it in the book is I kind of want to be the chef, right? The chef didn't invent oregano or he didn't invent pork, but he's taking all
Right.
these things and he's making
Mm,
something that is better than the sum of its parts, and he's leaving out things you don't want in the dish, and that's kind of what I tried to do. So I kind of just sorted it for people, but also I felt like if I'm getting people results, that is also kind of qualifying me. So even to this day, I'll have some family members or even some like friends that will be like, "Wait, why are you justified or qualified to write a book? Well, can you do that?" And I was like, "I did." So yeah, but are
mm,
you qualified to do that? Well, I have thousands of people telling me with emails and DMs showing me the very tangible results that they've achieved after going through my stuff, whether that's a course or whatever it is. So that is enough for me to know that okay, I created something that helped people, and so perhaps I don't have 40 years of experience and I don't have 11 PhDs, but I did something that helped people, and that's I think that's yeah that qualifies me. So
were you getting results before works, not for yourself, but were you getting results for other people prior to writing the book?
well, a little bit. So I would when I started really seeing results with personal growth in general, I would obviously see the results for myself, right? I went
Hmm.
from, like I said, drug, crime, my
Right.
health was terrible mentally, physically, all of that. I started turning that around. I started growing my dream physique. I started having more energy. I started having a better mental health. I started being more productive, all these things. So those were very real results for me. And then I would start kind of sparring with my friends, hey, try this thing I tried, right? And they would see the same results. I would help family members out, their goals in life, and it would just this pattern emerged where, okay, people are seeing results. So I kind of get what I think I get what you're kind of getting at is what would I do if I didn't have those like clear tangible results. And I think,
Kind of, a
yeah,
little
I kind of
bit.
felt like maybe that was it.
Yeah.
But I
Well,
think
not.
you
Go
sorry.
ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I think in that sense I would still kind of go very much the messenger route, being like,
Hmm.
I know this works because I've seen this work for a big guy like Dwayne Hedon, but also tens of thousands of his followers, and I've seen this work and this work and this work, and now we kind of put it
Yeah.
together. And so it's not me that goes out there and I'm kind of a messiah or prophet or whatever. I'm just kind of the chef making things easier to digest and implement and understand. So
I really like that analogy. You're not the person that created all the ingredients, but you're just a chef that's putting it all together to allow other people to enjoy it. Because maybe by itself they would never have discovered that particular ingredient, or maybe enjoyed it. Let's throw out something random, broccoli by itself, but combined with some other things, you're like, oh, this is a really nice dish. But no, so I guess what I was wondering, and the reason why I asked that question is because sometimes people may have, let's just say, like consulting that they do on the side, and then let's just say
mhm.
after 2 years of consulting, they're like, you know what, I should probably write a book about this because I'm tired of spending an hour, let's just say 3 hours a day, doing these 101s. Where if I could write this book, I can now reach a lot more people. Or maybe like you were saying, like you got the results for yourself first, and you're like, I know this works, and then you write the book. So I was just curious of like how um, were results being accomplished prior to writing the book. That's really it. That's all I was just curious about. Now, the process of the book you were saying took about 6 months to write. Writing books can be difficult before if you move from like the imposter syndrome of becoming an author. It's like, who am I to write this book, to be an author, right? Then the other part of everything I like to speak about, let's just say overthinking, perfectionism, really start to go into place. Really, perfectionism for a lot of people when they're looking to write their first book and publish their first book. With you, even though you already knew the methods that you wanted to implement into the book, and you knew that you were already helping people get results, how difficult, if at all, was it for you to be able to be like, okay, this book is at a place where it has all the necessary content, and I need to just go ahead and publish it? Maybe you didn't work with an editor. Maybe you were like the editor and the proofreader and the designer. Like, talk us through that process.
Absolutely. So first of all, I started very much with the what's it called? Write drunk, edit sober mentality. So I was very much like, okay, I'll just write, and it doesn't have to be perfect. I don't have to, even if there's a comma or a grammar mistake, whatever. I'll just write and I'll let it flow, and that's where the write drunk comes from. Right, just write, and then once you've written something, perhaps that's a bullet point, or maybe it's an entire chapter, maybe it's the entire book. Then we can start going into polishing it. And I did have a proofreader and an editor, but it was like there was no money really on I just hired a freelancer on Fiverr and Upwork and stuff like that, and it literally wasn't that big a deal. The reason I did it was because obviously English isn't my native language, and so there are some, you know, some areas of your like punctuation, stuff like that, where I just wanted to be sure that it was good. But I honestly think I would have helped just as many people if I didn't hire a proofreader and an editor. But I think also I was kind of, when I had the proofreader and the editor, they just went through it once, both of them, and I was just ready to get it out there because, well, for multiple reasons. One of them is there's a big entrepreneur, I can't remember what his name is, but he said if you're not a little bit embarrassed of your first version of the product, then you've shipped too late. So I think it's just about getting it out there
Mhm.
and then start, getting some feedback. And I can always, which I probably will soon actually, make a second edition and improve everything if I want to. So it's just get it out there. I think it's best for me as the author. I also think it's the better thing for the reader, because if I'm keeping that book captive for another 6 months while people are on a wait list and all these things, it's just that's 6 months of results that I'm kind of denying them, right? So I think it's best for the reader as well to just get it out there. So I think with a lot of things in life, which is something I'm still practicing, whether it's business or a book or it's going to the gym or whatever,
Hmm.
I think speed is oftentimes more important than perfection. I think if you just go to the gym and you do what you can, and then obviously you want to do it right and you want to educate yourself on the exercise and all that. But if you wait in your, I like to say this, if you're waiting in your garage
Hmm.
until every light between you and your destination is green perfectly at the same time, you're gonna be in your garage forever, right? So just I don't know, I just get started and just ship it. I think so. I know that's very very easy and simple to say. I just feel like it's the thing we should be aiming for.
No, but I know that's simple, but I think that is an amazing visual that everybody can relate to. You know, when we're looking to go somewhere, we're looking to go to work. Let's just go with going to work, right? Because it's a way of a form for all of us to be able to make money. If we wait for all the lights to be green to start the business, to apply for that job, like for whatever it is, realistically, unless you go at like 3 o'clock in the morning, because around here all the lights are green at 3 o'clock in the morning. But you may get caught with that one light that you got to wait for at like 5 minutes long. But realistically, most times when we're driving in the middle of the day, all your lights are not going to be green. You understand there are going to have to be red lights that you come to. There's going to be traffic. There's going to be detours that you have to take. But that never stops you from leaving your garage to get to your destination. So I really love that. It's speed. So what else have you realized other than the writing process for your book and let's say the gym? Other than those two things, what else have made you realize that you know what I need to focus on speed here and not necessarily perfection?
Well, one thing I'm very 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 big on is momentum.
Mm.
I had a mentor who told me the two things in life that scared him the most were momentum and a lack of momentum. Right? The first thing scared him in a good way, right? Because when you're in momentum, it's scary how much you can achieve. You can just break through brick walls, right? You're just a beast. And then when you have a lack of momentum, that's when we see procrastination. Is where we see overwhelm. Ironically, that's where we can see a lot of stress. Actually, even though you're not really moving, but you kind of you know you're behind up here, and so a lack of momentum is really bad. So with everything I do, I try to really just be in momentum. And when I say momentum, I'm talking about on a routine basis. So you and
Mhm.
I just talked about before we got on here about going to the gym and being in the rhythm with that. Once you're in the rhythm with that, it's a lot easier. So if last week you went 3 times, it's a lot easier to go 3 times this week as well,
Mhm.
and that's very powerful. But also on a per project basis. I listened to some of your other episodes, and I think you talked a little bit about this on some of those episodes as well. But getting started is very very um, very much the thing keeping people from, well, obviously getting started, but also from ever finishing. And so on a per project basis, momentum is huge as well.
Mhm.
So with something like writing the book, for example, getting started is very, 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 very hard, and it's probably the thing that holds most people back. But if you've already written like 170 pages, you can probably read the last 100 as well. So momentum is big for me, just like on a routine basis, but also on a per project basis. And I feel like perfection can oftentimes be the opposite of momentum.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, speed is obviously a huge part of what momentum is, right? So I think when you're in momentum, you have less doubts. I think you have less imposter syndrome. I think you have less overwhelm. I think you just have more of everything good and less of everything bad. So
It's funny that you bring that up, or you also mentioned that aspect of it, because there was a conversation that I was having yesterday that I believe that relates to this in a way, and I do agree with you that part of momentum is your routine. Like your routine has a lot to do with the momentum that you create in your life, whether we realize it or not. Some people are like, "Oh, I don't want to have a routine," but realistically, we all have a routine, whether we are conscious about it or not. It may not be a detailed, specific, productive routine, but you have a routine. Um, and when I believe when you have that routine that you are conscious about, that you're actively pursuing, it gets to be sometimes boring, but it's going to be something that always gets you results over time slowly. And once you start to see those and get those results, that's when, the momentum, the success, like people start recognizing it's like, oh, let me work with you, all things of that nature. So I was talking to a mentee yesterday about routines, and we were saying that uh, when it comes to your routine, when you fall off, because we all fall off of our routine sometimes, the routine that we desire to have. I was telling him sometimes you have to have like a keystone habit or like a keystone routine that you fall back into that allows all the rest of your routines to help you out. So like for me personally, it's I need to make sure that I'm in bed by 10 p.m. at the latest. If I'm in bed by 10 p.m. at the latest, I know I'll wake up early. I know I'll work out. I know I'll read. I know I'll journal. Like I know I will do everything else that I am desiring to do because I went to bed on time. And for some people, it may be something else. So for you, Daniel, what is that one thing for yourself that always helps you get back into your routine?
I actually wanted to say the exact same one that you just said. Like literally exactly at 10 p.m. If I'm in bed at 10 p.m. because I understand the opposite happens. If I don't, right? So you just said that 10 p.m. then that means you're up early. If you're up early, that means you can journal all these things.
Mm,
And then the opposite happens if you mess up, right? If I for some reason end up going to bed at midnight, that means I'm waking up late, and then I wake up with a very different kind of confidence, very different
mm,
energy, and then okay, oh wait, now I'm 2 hours behind. Do I skip some work, or do I skip a workout, or do I skip? It's just not good. So definitely going to bed on time. But I think a big one for me is exercising. Man,
mm,
when I'm working out consistently, I have more energy, more confidence, more self worth. I respect myself more, and I get this ball of doing hard things going. And that's once again a very simple concept, but this idea of doing what's hard, I think if you can do that, you'll win in business and life, and this weightlifting or just movement in general, could be some martial arts as well. It just really just keeps this energy, this kind of warrior energy that I want to kind of feel.
mm.
It just keeps all of that going. So I eat better when I work out. I am more productive before and after. When I work out, I am just like I said, more confident, and everything's better for me. So yeah.
10 p.m. and working out. I love it. So I also agree with you when you're saying like, hey, when I am a better person, and I'm more stuck on my routine, I'm doing well with working out, all that type of stuff. It also translates over to business. I'm a firm believer that the better that you are personally, the better that you focus on your personal development, the more disciplined, consistent, all things of that nature, it shows in your business life as well. So I meant to ask you earlier, what was the journey or the gap between writing the book and then like, okay, I'm going to help other people out? Or are you doing, let me start with that. Are you doing like one-on-ones, group coaching, or is everything that you've been helping out people have been through the words of your book?
So for a bunch of years,
Mm,
I was mostly doing the ebooks and the book and the digital trainings. Buy
mm,
this training for $70 or whatever, or this course, or and this membership, and I'm still doing all of that. I love it because well, I'll get back to why I love that. But now I'm doing more and more personal work as well. I always kind of did it with family members and friends, and many of them would come up to me, or I would sometimes come up to them and kind of offer my help just for practicing
right.
and for actually helping them in life. And then I'll do all of the kind of the digital products in my business. But now I'm doing a lot of one-on-one. There'll be some group coaching as well. There'll be some kind of like mentor thing where it's like they have access to me, but it's not necessarily a coaching program. A bunch of stuff like that because I feel I can go deeper, and I feel I can do more value for the person that way. So now I have both. I have the kind of mass market thing where I can
Mm,
help someone in Sri Lanka and Turkey and Japan and Florida at the same time with a book or something. But I can also have a one-on-one with a person where I know I'm helping fewer people, but on a larger scale there. So I have kind of macro and yeah. and I really enjoy that. I enjoy both sides of it.
Have you ever thought about starting like a solo podcast then? Something along the nature of that?
Yeah, absolutely, and I will be doing that 100% in the this year. I haven't decided on when because I'm also kind of looking into how much of it should be kind of be solo, me just talking about stuff, how much of it should be me interviewing people, and so I'm still figuring those things out. But I will this year absolutely start a podcast. So
Oh, okay, okay. I see opportunity here. So, what advice, based on everything that you said thus far, what advice would you give your own self about starting the podcast? Because a lot of people are like, "Oh, I want to start a podcast," but they're maybe thinking going through the same process that you're going through. But everything that you said thus far, what advice would you give yourself about starting your own podcast?
some of my top podcasters that I really, really, really like listening to, and I know they have a gazillion listeners and they're on top of the world. Sometimes I'll see they'll post like the first episode they ever did,
Hmm.
and it's just absolutely, it's very, very different to what they're posting today. When I'm starting my podcast, I'm not saying that I'm going to on purpose make a bad episode. I'm going to do my best. I'm going to research. I'm going to put effort into everything that kind of matters in a podcast. I'm going to do great work. Right. I'm not here
Hmm.
to just mess around. I will do what I can, but I am very aware that no matter how much I put into that first episode, 300 episodes later, I'm gonna look back and I'm gonna just roll on the floor laughing, and I wouldn't want it any other way. So I would want that first episode to get shipped or launched or released as soon as I could, while still obviously doing work I can get behind. But I just want that first episode to be. And once again, I haven't decided on the date yet, but I'd rather
Hmm.
that was in August than November. Right? I'd rather have it was in June than July. I just want to
Right.
get it started. So yeah.
No, that's real. The first podcast episode I ever did, not necessarily with this show, but the first podcast episode I did with my other show that I have, completely night and day. Because I didn't really know how to go about it. I was just like, you know what, it's just going to be a solo episode. I plugged up like a lavalier microphone that I got for $9 to my camera that I had. And I just went live on Instagram and just started talking. Um, and after maybe like 15 or 20 episodes, I was like, all right, I got to upgrade this a little bit more. I got to do something different, and continuously just starting to improve it from there. Eventually started doing guests on my show. And then now I'm doing this show. So it's a process. But yeah, like you said, it is a little bit laughable because when I will listen back to like my first 10 episodes, I'm like, people are listening to this. They like
Yeah,
this.
and you may say, well, the things that you changed after episode 20, why didn't you just do those things right away? Why didn't you just make those upgrades before starting? Well, perhaps you weren't aware exactly
Hmm.
what needed to be upgraded in which way and how and when, and because you hadn't done that, so you understood those needs for upgrading because of the 20 episodes, right? So that's then we're back
Hmm.
to just get your car started and go, and then maybe the third light will be red. Cool, we'll figure it out. And maybe after 7 lights, there'll be a bit of a detour because of construction, whatever. Cool, we'll figure that out when we get there. Important part is we're not just in our garage and yeah.
Question: You are the type of person that definitely indulges in a lot of learning. You're a forever learner. Do you have any mentors? Like, how? I mean, if you do, how many have you had?
Oof, that's a good question. I've certainly had mentors. I think I'm a little bit unsure of the definition of a mentor. There would have to be like a back and forth, right? Because I've had a ton of people where I've gone to their conferences, shook their hands, read the books, all these things, and I've kind of gotten a lot from them, but there hasn't been this back and forth.
Let's go with the
The back and
mentor
forth thing.
definition to you. Like, whatever mentor means to you.
Well, if the mentor, what mentor means to me is someone that kind of shows me the way in
Hmm.
in in something that I want to if there's a destination I want to get to, and there's someone that kind of shows me the way to that, if that's a mentor, which I think it is for me, then I've had many of them, and many of them I still have. But I also have the kind of back and forth, which is a little bit more of like an intimate mentor, coach slash whatever relationship. I've had a little bit of family, not too much. I have one uncle who's a serial entrepreneur as well. I can kind of spar a little bit with him. But then I also have a bunch of coaches like online, but where I actually meet them and we go back and forth and we kind of look at what's happening. I have that for my personal life, but also for my business. I'm thinking of getting a personal coach for like my martial arts, and I do a lot of like Muay Thai boxing and MMA and stuff like that. I'm thinking of doing not just the classes, but some one-on-one there. I think one-on-one is, once again, like the books, it's just a crazy shortcut. And I'm not, usually I hate the word shortcut because I'm very much about do the thing you need to do. There's no shortcuts or anything like that. But someone who's done what you want to do, who can one-on-one or through a book or a course, whatever, can show you the way. I think it's just so goddamn powerful. It's the closest thing to a shortcut that I can think of.
No, I can definitely align with you on that. So I box, so I can
Nice.
definitely. So let me back up. In boxing, the way that a lot of people get into boxing is going to like fitness classes, right? And so,
Yeah, dude, I've seen the fitness classes, and they're kind of punching from their hips and everything. And then when they come to an actual like
yeah,
boxing class, they've learned things that are kind of difficult to get away from
exactly.
again. And so, yeah,
So I was after going through a couple of the group fitness classes to one of my local gyms. I was like, you know what, I want to start doing some one-on-one training with the coaches. The way that I started progressing at a much faster rate by doing the one-on-ones was outrageous. And like you're saying, like I still obviously had to put in the work. Like I'm going to the one-on-ones with the coach and he's actually telling me like, hey, you need to fix this and go home and work on XYZ. I go on and work on it. But it's a shortcut in a way because if I were to just continue to go to the group sessions and let's consider the group sessions like just a book, right? You can't go back and forth with the author. You can't have a one-on-one. If you're thinking about the group session, you're the coach, the author can't tailor everything to you specifically because you're not within that intimate situation. So yeah, having those one-on-ones interactions, it definitely is the shortcut, quote unquote, in order to help you get to where you want to be a lot faster.
yeah, and also the feedback loop is very,
Mm,
very, very important, which you can't do through a book. And so I know your basketball is pretty huge in the US. So I'll use this analogy. If I'm out there practicing my 3-pointer and I'm just doing the same thing over and over and over again, I like to say practice doesn't make perfect, practice makes permanent. So if you're doing the wrong thing 300 times per day,
mm,
you'll get really, really, really good at doing the wrong thing, right? So
mm,
many people think if I just go get out there and I just shoot the 3-pointer, if there's no feedback loop, so you're just shooting, oh I missed, and then you're shooting again, oh I missed, and you do that, you get really good at going a little bit too much to the right, or maybe your wrist is not where it's supposed to be, or whatever.
right.
But if you have some kind of feedback loop, perhaps there's a coach, right? And then you shoot, and he goes, oh, maybe you need to twist this a little bit. Okay, you'll try again.
Hmm.
Better, but try a little bit more. Okay, and then after every try, there's a feedback loop. Now you can kind of try to do that yourself, right? Maybe you can film yourself, or maybe you can shoot and then ask yourself, look, what happened? Why did it go too much to the right, or why am I not getting it? Whatever, whatever. So try if you can get this feedback loop, but oftentimes it's a lot easier if there's someone that can give you that feedback. So I think a lot of people, and I'm all for practicing. It's great. Just be aware that if there's no feedback loop, you can just get really good at doing the wrong thing.
What would you say is some of the best advice that you received or the best feedback that you received from any type of mentors over time?
Sometimes it's the simplest stuff, like really just the powerful reminders. And I know those are not sexy. The sexy stuff is like the really advanced, powerful hack, whatever. You can double something by doing this
Hmm.
one thing for 20 minutes, whatever, whatever. For me, with let's say a business coach, I've absolutely been discussing like some more high level stuff of how you should manage your finances when you have this amount of profit and this amount of, kind of go deep into the numbers and all these things, and that's valuable. But sometimes the most powerful stuff, it's just a simple reminder. And I think one of the most powerful ones that I've gotten recently, which I love, is only doing the thing is doing the thing. There was some guy that wrote a huge, long tweet about it. I think maybe you've seen it, but where he said, reading about doing the thing isn't doing the thing. Talking to someone who's done the thing isn't doing the thing. Planning to do the thing isn't doing the thing. The only thing that's doing the thing is doing the thing. And for me, I kind of had sometimes I had like periods of time where I would step into this idea that everything that had something to do with my business
Mm-hmm.
was productivity. So whether I was reading about business, or I was DMing people about business, or I was at a business class, or whatever, as long as it had something to do with my business, I felt like, man, that was productive and that was good. Now we've kind of stripped like 90% of what I was doing away and said, you can do those things. Absolutely. Read books and go to classes and all these things. Just know that's not doing the thing. So when we say do the thing for maybe an hour and a half, then we take a break, then I do another work session where I'm doing the thing for 90 minutes, that's only this thing, right? Maybe that's reaching out to podcasters, or maybe it's writing my ebook, whatever. So that's one thing that's very powerful to me. It's just kind of removing everything that isn't doing the thing.
Mm. Yeah. Taking action is the only way that you're truly going to be able to get that experience that, and honestly, a lot of times the true knowledge that you're looking for. Because, like you said, sometimes watching the videos, the tutorials, reading the books is one thing, but you gain a different type of knowledge when you're actually in the thick of it. So yeah, doing the only way to do the thing is to do the thing. I like that. I like that. But Daniel, wrapping up here today, I always have like one question that I love to ask people. You probably heard this from one of the other episodes, but what was success to you 5 years ago, and what is success to you today?
So one thing I sometimes talk about, which we haven't talked too much about today, where we can maybe do that if there's a round two in the future.
Of
But I
course.
talk about this idea of having a kind of a vision for what your world class life would look like just a really incredible life for you. What kind of health would you want? What kind of business? What kind of money? What kind of everything? What kind of confidence would you want?
Hmm.
And when you have that vision of what an ideal life would look like, which I don't think I'm ever going to hit. I don't think anyone should ever hit it, because once I get a little bit closer to it, maybe I'll adjust, or maybe I'll make the vision more ambitious or whatever. But that vision, I think success is getting closer to that.
Hmm.
I think happiness is great, and I think happiness is good. It's not something I'm going to chase as much, because I feel happiness, it comes and goes. You can be the billionaire and everything. You'll have happy days. On happy days, you can live somewhere terrible. You'll have happy days on happy days. I think that's difficult to kind of chase, and then maybe then you've failed when you're not happy. I don't really like that too much. So I think happiness, I think it's like Jordan Peterson says, aim for good, pray for happiness. So what I try to do is I try to get closer to this ideal version of a good life, and then when happiness is there, nice. And when it's not, I'm still gonna do the things I need to do to get close to the ideal life, which hitting the ideal life is not success for me, but getting closer to it today compared to yesterday, I think that's the ultimate definition for success for me.
I love that. There's so many different aspects of that that I love. I'm also a firm believer of that happiness comes and goes. People are like, "Are you happy?" I'm like, no, but I'm appreciative. That's kind of like the route that I always go to. I appreciate where I am in life. I'm grateful for where I am, but I feel like happiness is like joy on like 10, and I don't feel that way every single day. And like talking about
Yeah,
like that
and
lifestyle, like if I'm going towards that lifestyle, I also feel like I'm doing good.
yeah, and also like if I was chasing happiness, that was kind of what led me to problems when I was younger, right? Because if you're doing
Mm.
cocaine, you're happy. If you're speeding 200 kilometers an hour, well, I don't know what that is in miles, but 140 maybe or something like that. It's I'm happy, right? Or at least some kind of happiness, but it's not good for me. And once again, like Jordan Peterson says, if you give your child an ice cream for dinner, he'll be happy. If you give him a healthy, well cooked meal, he'll have a good life. So you should choose: do we want him to be happy, or do we want him to have a good life?
Mm.
And I think we should absolutely give our son the good life, right? The healthy meal. It's not gonna be a good thing if he has ice cream for dinner every day. And then you realize that once he has the good meal, oftentimes he'll actually perhaps be even happier, over time than if he had the ice cream every day. So I just think chasing happiness is difficult. I think you should chase a good life instead.
Mm. And on that note, I think that's a great point to save for another day. Daniel, this has been an amazing episode. Would love to have you just like pub yourself real quick. Where can people find you, and where can people support you?
Absolutely. So I will go harder and harder on social media. I'm doing the most on Instagram, but I will be going on just about every social media out there. So you can just search for my name. I'll be there. And if I'm not, I will be in the very near future. And then there's my company website, passionforachievement.com, where there is an opportunity to grab a free PDF that kind of helps with some of the stuff we've talked about today. It shows how I would design a world class life for myself or a client, and then how we can get closer to that in the best, most effective, and most sustainable way. So that's completely free. If you want that, you can grab it. And yeah, I think that's about it. I also have the book on Amazon, but yeah, the Cure for Mediocrity, it's called. But I will admit, Passion for Achievement is getting the majority of my attention at the moment, so that's probably the best place to go.
And that
Yeah.
was passion, the number four, correct?
Yes, passion, the number four, achievement.com.
Perfect. Well, Daniel, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday evening to be with us today. This has been an amazing episode, y'all. Always remember, if you gain some value from this episode, go ahead and share it out to three people. Share that knowledge with the world, so we can continue this international gems that Daniel is over here dropping. Y'all, this has been another episode of Verified Phenoms. We will catch y'all on the very next episode. See ya.